And we are live, guys, and welcome to another session of Malifaux Corner. Today we have a very special guest. Actually, today we're going to talk about Malifaux, as in picking your faction into Malifaux. Whether you are jumping into a new faction, or if you are starting in Malifaux and you wanted to pick a new faction, or whatever. But today our special guest is Joel Hendry, and I'm just going to let him introduce himself because, he's cool like that.
I'll try to be. Hi guys. For those who haven't yet put a face to the name, I'm Joel Henry. I'm currently number 2 on the UK Malifaux scene.
For a couple of weeks only.
For a couple of weeks, yes. As one of my events fallen off. I've been up at the top of the Malifaux scene over here for a little over a year now. And I'm part of the Malifools podcast as well, with Mike Marshall and Conrad and Ben.
Worth noting that the Malifaux is actually the one that developed the Malifaux ranking system. And that's why Joel can say like he's the number 2 for a couple of weeks. He's going to be number 1 again soon. He's also the only player that has been number 1 in 2 different factions at once. That his team actually had to convert the programming to accept that.
And I'm currently working on the 3rd one as well.
Oh my God, you're playing Gremlins now.
Branching out.
For a limited time anyway.
Now, before we start on the actual topic, you also have a fundraiser that you need to do, right? If you want to plug that.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, I'm running something called Gremlins for Joel. It's part of a thing we have here called WAC, which is War Gamers Against All Cancer, which is actually started by a guy on Twitter called Doc Bungle on there, the bear. And he's recently experienced some family tragedy involving cancer, and he wanted to do something special. So he started up a whole series of events, which I was happy to join in with. So my contribution to this is that I was going to buy and paint and be made to play Gremlins for as many events as people could make me do it. And the more people donated, the more silly Gremlin-related things and the more events I'd have to take them to. It's a great mixture of spite and hilarity that combines well for charity purposes. So thanks to the generosity of many individuals from across the globe now, I'm having to play Gremlins in 4 events, including the GT and the Masters in January now, while wearing a pig onesie, while having to do a face plant into a cake in the pig onesie, and having to paint and play many, many Gremlins. I've even had people choosing my wish at some events as well.
We had a side goal that created by Dan Johnson from Before We Begin. Also, if we hit 12,000 quid, you were actually going to show up in a pig onesie, but we couldn't do it.
Not quite, yeah. Just missed
out. Anyways, Alex also is actually going to be joining me in Malifaux Corners as a permanent co-host now.
Woohoo! Thanks for having me, guys.
He's totally dragged into this. That's what happened when you're the most prepared guest. I should have this guy.
Wait, there was a chart. Look at the lovely chart.
Anyways, let's just get started. There's 3 questions that I asked these guys, and I'm just gonna be moderating because these guys are a lot more like better player than me. I always ask advice from either one of these, especially Joel because he used to play Guild and I play a lot of Guild. And now Alex is trying to recruit me to 10 Thunder, so I'm asking advice from 10 Thunder. But anyway, the 3 questions that I asked them is, number 1, why would I pick this faction to start Malifaux? More of a, if you like playing X or Y style, this is the faction for you. So all the pluses from the faction. And then number 2, why would I hate going against this faction as my current faction if you already played Malifaux? And number 3 is what is this faction lacking, which is what's the negative of the faction. And then each of them are just going to go over each factions, and then I'm going to jump in once in a while because I have very limited knowledge on certain factions, and I'm pretty sure one of these guys also have a little bit less knowledge on certain factions, so that's why we're trying to join forces. But anyways, let's start with the first faction. Who wants to go first? I think Guild would be first. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Guild's at the top of my list just because, most people think Guild or Neverborn when they think Malifaux. So,
All right.
Yeah, let's
Let's
walk
go
them
with.
through in the order they're in the book. Let's start with Guild and work through.
okay,
Yeah. All right.
very good.
So, Alex, you can go first.
Right on. What do I think when I think Guild? Man, I think mostly like hardy models. They have solid shooting that they bring out there. Lots of scheme marker shenanigans through things like Finish the Job and like Lucius, like all the scheme markers. Really, I kind of to liken them to other games like they're kind of the well-rounded group. Like they have some things that excel here and there, but if you just want like a solid performer that they build synergies, but they can also go off on their own. That's kind of where I see them as they have kind of a mid-strength melee. They have some solid shooting. Play is kind of dedicated to which master you choose, but not wholly. And yeah, that's what I feel about them. They're just kind of the well-rounded choice, and by choosing that faction, you have access to everything. You have schemy supportish masters. You have conditions with, say, McMorning. Lucius being the support scheme master. If you need speed, you got Lucas. You have Beatty with Lady Justice. You want to shoot people, everyone loves Perdita. You want to set them on fire instead? You've got something for everyone. So it doesn't really specialize too hard, and you get to have the superiority complex that Guild brings to the table.
Okay. Joel.
For me, the first word that comes to my mind when I think about Guild is reliability. These are the guys who can get the job done. They're not a glass cannon in any way. They're quite tough across the board. They'll stick around. They will finish the job and drop some scheme markers somewhere. They can be relied on to do most things in the game pretty well. Other good reason to pick out them, if you're into robots and guns, then this is pretty much a great faction to go for. They've got a great access to both of those. So if you want to pick yourself a bunch of nice looking robots and enjoy shooting things in the game, Guild is probably a good way to go. Also, they're not afraid to assert their authority. There's plenty of good, solid models that just go in there and kill things very dead. And for that point of view, if you come into Malifaux from a different game system, they're quite an easy to understand, reliable faction. You'll be able to play them without having to bend your mind around too many of Malifaux's tricks straight away. They've got quite a lot of masters you can choose that will actually enhance your gameplay, and it'd be an easy start for you into the game. I say they're solid, reliable, dependable models. With their own little flares here and there, mixed amount of individuals, but generally just a solid, reliable faction.
Also worth noting that Guild probably has the most 4 Soulstone models around, other than the Gremlins, obviously.
They've got certainly quite a lot, haven't they?
Yeah, they got the Guild Hounds, they have the Watcher, they have the Wastrels. Luna is 4 points. Well, most totems are 4 points, but yeah, they have a lot of reliable 4-point model as well.
So
I actually have nothing to disagree against that because I play Guild mostly, and they've been doing the job right for me so far. I mean, other than when I lost. Okay, so question number 2: why would I hate going against this faction? Alex, you can go first.
I get annoyed. I play 10 Thunders mostly as of late, and the scheme marker placements, having them all over the place. You then have to dedicate resources to go either clean them up, or you have to hire out a faction, like get a specialist or something to clean house, and that's kind of annoying. You don't really know exactly who you're going to go against in a tournament setting or in a vassal setting, because they do have. You kind of have to take that dreaded all-comers list because they're like Joel said, they're resilient. You can't just decide to smash one side and move through because everything has some staying power. So you kind of got to just be ready for to match them with as best you can. That said, I got to note that I don't like going against them because they have a lot. But maybe I should. I've put that in their strengths. A lot of their stuff happens on their turn in activation. But conversely, they don't have a lot of out-of-activation tricks, which other factions do. So that's kind of the straightforwardness that you get with them, and you can kind of exploit that to your advantage because you're like, okay, that side of the board's pretty much done. Cool. Now Lucius kind of monkeys with that a little bit, but for the most part, that's true. But yeah, that's my annoyance, is all the scheme markers and their resilience. That's the biggest drawback.
Funny that you actually mentioned something about, unpredictability because you play 10 Thunders, but let's get back to that later.
Yeah, no, that's in my section too for that.
All right, Joe?
I completely agree with what Alex has said there. It pretty much does go for that. In that, when my thing with Neverborn, which is my current faction, my main faction, the reason I hate going against Guild is because it takes more AP than I would like to get the job done. I have to do more AP in more places to try and stop them getting their schemes. If a Guild crew is very good at scoring its points, it's not maybe the best at denial, but it's very good about scoring its own points. And even if I manage to kill something, chances are it's dropped a marker in a place I have to then spend AP to remove or do something else to it. And in the end, it'll just slow me down. And that's what the toughest thing is with them for me.
Okay, yeah, completely agree. I actually got nothing to add because you guys just completely filled that section up. Number 3, what is this faction lacking?
Lacking. Like that out of turn activation that's so potent, or out of turn abilities that is so potent in other factions. They're lacking there. They don't really have a lot of I gotchas. Where I forgot about that aura. Oh, I forgot. Dang it! That stuff that's really going to catch someone if they get too distracted with doing their own shtick. But they're really not lacking all that much, depending on what crew you bring, and that's part of their charm. So
yeah, that's being the all-rounder kind of thing. You kind of cover jack of all trades, but you're not super strong in certain areas.
There we go. They're lacking surprises. Exactly what you pay for.
Repose.
Right.
If I had to add to that, I'd say maybe one thing they've got slightly less of than some of the factions are attacks that target willpower.
Yeah.
Most of their stuff is defense orientated, so they don't go again. They're not trying to mess with people's minds. they're the oppressors. They're forcing people underfoot at sword and gunpoint, and most of their stuff is defense orientated. So although they can very much cope with other people's willpower tricks, they are not so good at dishing out some of their own. So you're going to be straightforward in your approach to getting rid of enemy models with a guild crew.
Yeah, they're pretty straightforward. It's like, hey, I'm gonna attack you, and that's all you're gonna, defend yourself. I'm not gonna try to play with your mind or whatever. Lucius is probably the one that's kind of doing that, but he is part Neverborn now, so there you go.
He's all Neverborn, just partly guild.
Right. Somehow found his way in.
All right, well, that was Guild Faction. That was easy, straightforward. Probably the easy. Would you guys agree that Guild would be the easiest faction to start with? Learn the mechanic of the game.
Can we go with the Othello motto of a minute to learn, a lifetime to master? They have.
Yeah, I like that actually.
They have deeper synergies, but really on face value, yeah, you could put them on the table and have a decent game.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, faction number 2, I would say Arcanist.
Resers.
Is it Resers first?
In the book, yep.
Okay, let's go with Resers. Let's go with Alex again.
All right. So you like zombies? We got zombies. We got pretty zombies, ugly zombies, mindless zombies.
Hooker zombies. Yeah.
Oriental zombies.
Oh yeah.
Spirits, of course, too. Yeah. So we've got zombies for days. They're the major summoning crew. Why do we like them? You really got to love the undead vibe because you're going to be painting a lot of necrotic flesh. That said, they do bring a nice spectrum as far as where those zombies are coming from. They are the main summoners. You have a lot of versatility with them. It kind of brings the burden, if this is your starting crew, of you have to kind of have a wide breadth of knowledge to know what to bring for those summoners in order to apply them to the fullest ability, but it also means you can buy whatever models you think are cool and put them on the table.
Yeah, they're kind of a little bit heavy on the wallet.
Yeah, they can be. They can be. They don't have to be, but they can be. But you'll find yourself wanting to branch out really quick if you go with them. As far as mechanics, they've got a lot of terrifying, rightfully so. They're zombies, and they have a lot of resilience through just attrition, lots of wounds all over the place. And so, if you like things to stick around, or pop back up, or I'd say they're second to Gremlins, but they, just have disposable models, which is nice.
Joe?
Yep, I'd agree with pretty much all of that. Two words that occur to me with Rezzers are attrition, because they win that war every single time, and hard to wound. These things are not particularly hard to hit, but they're just tough. Nothing can take a punch like a Rezzer crew, all over the place. They're all the masters of summoning in some way, shape, or form. Some of them use different mechanics to others. Some of them are better at it than others. But yes, they're going to give you some nasty surprises. They can come at you some odd directions, generally through things like terrifying or some nifty movement tricks you might not expect from them. Mm-hmm. And the models they're going to bring up are going to be plentiful. They're coming back no matter how hard you hit them with a shovel. Mm-hmm. And they're just not going to stop. And if you let them get in control, they will roll over any crew put in front of them.
Oh, you killed my dog? Oh, Bet Noir came out of nowhere. And also worth mentioning that they also have incorporeal stuff, a lot of spirit stuff, so your damage, if you don't have magical stuff, it's half. So they're really, really tough. Like Flesh Construct's 6-point model that has 13 wounds, right?
Yep.
Oh my God.
All right, question number 2. Why would I hate going against this faction? I mean, you probably already kind of covered it a little bit, but yeah.
You're gonna be out activated more than likely. Like at some point during the game, the horde, unless the avalanche is in your favor and you just start oppressing them, you're not using corpse markers or anything like that, or anything that generates corpse markers. Unless you start winning that war, you're gonna get out of activated eventually. And then it comes down to how many of your points did you score before the avalanche rolls over you. It's that worst moment of Left 4 Dead or 28 Days Later where you're like, I'm gonna hide in this car and hope for the best, because if the Rezzer has his way, that's generally where it's gonna end up. I hate going against them because they're surprisingly fast, like Joel said. You wouldn't expect the lurching horde to be moving like 5 inches at a time, and then summon like 6 inches away, and then like move again. It's like, oh my god, just stay away. But yeah, you just don't have that option with them because they're faster than expected, I guess. I don't like all the incorporeal. It makes the terrain very inconsequential for them. So completing their schemes where you might have to stop and spend 3 AP going around some massive impassable whatever or whatnot. You really have to take that into your list when you're building it up, or else you're just going to be beat to the punch. So.
Yeah, for me, it's they have board control. They can put so many models in so many areas of the board that they can simply deny you access to where you'll place things, where you interact with things, and they can just roll over you. As he mentioned, the avalanche is a very good description of them, Alex, indeed. They will just continue to come and come and come. If I can't kill them quick enough, which tends to be the main problem, then they are just going to annihilate me slowly, bit by bit.
And it's a painful, slow
bit
by bit.
One thing to add to that, conditions. They have a lot of conditions you're not gonna like, and so like I don't need to mention the hanged or all the things that happen with like poison and like there's things that people see and they're just like, oh, I don't want to deal with that, So that's something.
I've been listening to several different podcasts, and the top 5 for Rezzer, the first one is usually hanged.
Hanged, right. Just die in a fire.
So what is this faction lacking, Alex?
As we kind of started out, they lack defense, so you can hit them. You can hit them pretty well. If you go with death by 1,000 cuts, it's going to take 1,000 cuts, but you can hit them. Stuff that amps up, like, if you can apply your own conditions to them that make the game a little bit different, that'll help. But they do have hard to wounds that kind of makes up for it. They don't have, at least as far as in my meta and my experience, they don't have a lot of ranged attacks as far as damage dealing, but they have like those lures, those bells. You know, they have stuff they can do to you from range, and they can get their models to you. But as far as like ranged attacks, they don't have a lot of. So maybe cover isn't always going to help you that much there, so because they're lacking that. And that's
most of the range stuff is casting to do something.
Yeah.
So they're power.
Yeah, they're lacking them, but it's not really something that hinders them. So something to think about.
Go.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add is they lack a wide range of models that do an awful lot of damage themselves. A lot of weak damage on a lot of the models is 1 or 2 points. So they've not got many models with a huge damage output. There are exceptions, the Dead Rider, Izamu, and a few other things they can get hold of. But in general, they're going to, although they're tough, they're not going to take you down in one hit either. They're going to have to swarm over you or tie you up to get their job done. They'll get to combat with you and hope to hang out long enough, because they're tougher, enough to take your model down in several hits. As opposed to some factions where they'll come in and try to decapitate the other model in one strike.
Yeah, I personally hate going against the Resurrectionist because I never win the attrition war. Never, ever. All right, let's go with the third faction, and I'm going to let Joel actually start first this time and switch it around with Alex.
Sounds good.
What is the third faction? Is it Arcanist?
That's Arcanist, yeah.
Yes.
The Arcanists are the faction of questions, I will say, because you can never tell what you're going to get. You could be getting a shooting range master, you could get a close-in combat master, you could get the guerrilla warfare master, and they're a faction that no matter what they bring, they will ask you questions. They're in some ways very diverse in what the masters do. They each have their own particular specialties. So you're going to get a faction with a wide variety of choice, which will fit a wide variety of your playstyles. So if you wanted to get into Malifaux with Arcanist, you've got a lot of choice in different ways you could play it. And I don't think you ever get bored of doing the similar things with them.
Yeah. I got to say that they feel really resilient to me, where the guild might be just kind of all-rounders, and Resurrectionists can just take it to the face. Arcanists seem to have defenses that they stick around as well, in my opinion, whether it be through their upgrades or whatnot, giving them armor or ways to ablate wounds. But I think that as a starting faction, they're also really good because each master is kind of specialized and works really well with its individual crew. And so, if you take Marcus, then, the beast he starts with, it's a great, start. He won't branch out, heavily to the other masters in the Arcanist faction. He can, but, his synergies are very powerful within his box. You move to others, Ramos. His synergies are powerful within his box. So everyone's like starter box there arguably is really solid because, they kind of focus in on how they play, more so I think than other factions. So I think that's why they're a good start for a Malifaux player.
And Alex, you mentioned earlier in Guild that you hate the fact that they're they can do their schemes right and whatever. But worth noting, Colette is probably the scheme master of the whole Malifaux. She can drop probably 7 scheme marker in one go.
Let's not go there. She's a silly person. Yeah. That's the other thing. You don't know what to plan on because each one of those masters plays so differently in their own silo, so to speak.
So question number 2: why would I hate going against Arcanist? Alex? Oh, sorry, Joel. Sorry, it was Joel first. No.
Okay. Because you never can tell what you're going to get. And they can be played from many different angles.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Like, you don't know what to plan for. You can't plan for, okay, I know that I need to take a melee crew. I need to take a shooty crew. I need to take, a crew that just gets my schemes out there, to counter that, side. You just can't plan on. So, I mean, you can plan on some armor things, probably. You can count on maybe a little bit of light summoning. But you don't really know what you're going to be planning against.
And to add salt to Alex's wound right now, he's going against Nick Harendra, who is an Arcanist master, and he does not know what he's bringing, and he's been messaging me daily. He's like, I don't know what to bring.
It's the horrible part, and the wonderful part about this Weird Place League is that you get to look at it and stew for like 2 weeks. Whereas when you just meet at a table, it's like, all right, let's play. Okay, But no, it's just like, man, what am I gonna do? And that's the thing. The reason I don't like going against Arcanist is because unless you invest the time to learn what each of those masters does, you're gonna be surprised in some way that they dig into you, because they don't use the same mechanics to do so at all. So yeah, you just can't plan for it. So
yeah. I think you've got to really just play your own game when you face up. You work out how you're going to get your 10 points, and then it does place the ball a little bit in the with the initiative of the Arcanist player. That if they've made the right crew selection, you're going to be slightly on the back foot, and you will have to improvise on the fly to beat that crew at that particular way. But if you're playing your game, then you should be able to get on with that. It's can you stop them disrupting you?
Right. Right, and I think that's about all we can say there.
So what is the Arcanist faction is lacking of?
Very little. To my mind, they're probably one of the strongest factions in Malifaux. As a faction, they lack very little. They have good access to range shooting. They have good close combat monsters. They have good access to summoning. They have the ability to mess with scheme markers. They've got speed through some of the lists as well. The thing they have is not the ability to do it all at once. Like some of the factions who are a bit more generalist and the specialists in Arcanists can bring and do that a lot at once. If you try and bring a rounded crew in Arcanists, you tend to lack some synergy. As a result, so you're giving up synergy for specialism in some ways. So that's something they're lacking, I suppose. No good generalist models.
Yeah, and that's all I was going to go with is, their versatility. Each master has their forte, and they bring it all. But, you can't bring it all at the same time unless you dilute some of the potency. And that's the hard part playing against them, is you have to recognize how that master is going to come at you and try to hit whatever weak spot they have, because they will have one. It's just, can you exploit it enough?
They do have some interesting combos that I've seen, like bringing the Ice Golem and the Electrical Creation, which is a construct, and then tossing them around like little time bombs.
Yep. Grenade! Yeah, you're done.
All right, let's go with the fourth faction. I believe it's not Outcast.
No, it's the Neverborn, the one true faction.
Your baby.
These guys are the natives of Malifaux.
Yes, they are. And if you want to pick up Neverborn as a faction, it'll be because you like getting into combat. These guys are the close combat glass cannon specialists. They tend not to have great defense. They tend to be very offensive in lots of different ways. And they are very much all about making sure the opponent doesn't exist anymore. They also have a huge amount of tricks and have an awful lot of speed as well. And that's their main strengths.
I agree completely. The big thing I'd say, much like I said, Guild is kind of straightforward, and everything they're going to do generally happens on their activation. The Neverborn is like, oh, you did this? Cool. That happens to you. Oh, it's really tit for tat in their mechanics. They allow you to break a good number of the core mechanic rules. Oh, you can cheat initiative. Cool. Go have fun with that. There's a lot of tricky plays, and your order of operations comes into play a lot. they're melee masters. They don't care if you get hit. Oftentimes you'll regret it anyway. With like Black Blood, or they have manipulative models, and there's a lot going on there. So the models are, if you're into like scary beasties and things that go bump in the night, Neverborn's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you get teddy bears. Win.
Teddy bears and creatures from your nightmare.
Yep.
If I have to add to that, I already think Joel already mentioned it, but if I can summarize Neverborn in one word, is speed. Generally, speed, because they want to be in melee, so their speed has to, match that. But let's go with question number 2. So if you are going against Neverborn, why would you hate it, Joel?
I think it comes up for what Alex said, actually, because no matter what you do to them, it's going to hurt you. They do a lot of things out of activation. You have a lot to keep track of, and if you slip up for one moment against a Neverborn crew and let them in, they will make you pay for it in models, in activations, in VP, which they can do very, very quickly. What they need is that one chink in your armor, and if you let that through, it's all over. And they're all about trying to force you into making that mistake.
Right. And, they actually don't let you play the game the way you want to. I think that's the big thing. Like, Pandora. The first time you play Pandora, you're like, wait, no, I want to do him. No, you're going to activate that. Oh, you activated that first? Cool, he's paralyzed. But, you just don't get to play the game the way you want to. That's the only thing I can add is like, the Neverborn player will often dictate your actions, whether through threats of a penalty or just actually making you play the game they want.
Yeah.
So,
if it was a magic color, it would be blue.
Yeah, they're the second faction I would hate going against, other than Resurrectionist. What is this faction lacking, Joe?
Ranged attacks that do damage and good solid armor. They want to be up close to do the damage they need to do. They have some ranged ability, but it tends to be at maximum about range 8 inches, maybe 1 or 2 at 10, and most of that's not actually doing any damage. Also, there are very few models in the faction with armor. Only about 3 come to mind, and only one of those is armor 2. So they don't have very much resistance to damage, and there's an awful lot of models with very low defense. So if you can hit them before they get there, then that's probably your wisest move, because once they're in amongst you, the job becomes a lot harder.
Yeah.
Or in case of Lilith, if one of them goes like within your group, she can always just swap them around. So.
if Lilith wants you over by her, you're coming over by her, and one at a time she'll take your crew apart and just pick you off. Get over here.
Alex, what is the Neverborn lacking, you think?
Yeah, ranged firepower, defense. Some models have a lot of wounds. They generally are about a median of 7, which is, highish for some situations in your list and lowish for others if you want your beaters and, stuff like that. So, I think Joel covered most of them. But, that not having a ranged firepower, it really dictates how you have to deploy and look at the board. You have to be looking for that cover. You have to be looking for that avenue you're going to charge through. You need to really be paying attention for that, and that lacking of ranged ability means your hand is forced, and you have to play that hyper-aggressive, or you're just going to die.
Cool. Let's get on with our 5th, and we're going to switch back from Alex to Joel now. Outcast is the 5th one. This is the one that I'm most confused about. I mean, at least from 1.5, it's like, what's going on with the Outcast? And Gremlins used to be part of the Outcast, and now they have their own faction. They got completely booted off. We still have a very unique crew for each of the masters. So Alex, what if you want to go pick Outcast? Why would you want to do it?
Okay. I call these guys the "oh my god, they do what" faction. The outer fringe. of the Malifaux society. They are very diverse in what they do, what they look like. You can't really draw a lot of lines that connect them. Like the Arcanist, they have wacky mechanics that interact very well with one another. And I'm going to say that I don't feel like they have as solid a stat lines as some of the Arcanist masters and their crews, but these guys just, instead, they have tricks, lots of them. And, oh, I might not have the stat line, so I die. Cool, I'm just going to come back. Not because he summons me, but because I just come back. Or I summon these two little guys when I die. Or, oh, cool, these two things came together. Great, new models. You know, it's like, oh my god, what do you do? But that said, they also have all the mercenaries of note that most people love to take. And those guys have fortes that, you know, you've got Taylor for anti-summoning and beating people in the head. Everyone loves Killjoy.
Trapper's been pretty popular lately.
Yeah, all the free core stuff. They're just solid. So, you know, if you go for some of the crazy folks like Jackdaw, Levi, Hamlin, you know, you're going to just kind of confuse your opponent unless they actually know how to play against you. And, yeah, they're just kind of awesome in their variety, and I like that a lot about them.
Joe?
Yeah, to add to that, they have probably, I think, in their each respective field of endeavour, they probably have the best person for the job out of all the factions. If you want to go and get into melee, there is no master better at that than the Victorious, with their high damage and the killing rate. You've got the master with the largest summoning pool in the entire game in Reveticus, and the amount of models he can choose from across any faction. You have someone who can throw upgrades at you and curse you and debuff your entire crew. You have summoning out more rats than possibly you could own, and carpet and boarding vermin. You've got someone who is extremely good at what they do, but just doing that one thing very well. But to complement that, in the Arcanist, in the Outcast, you have a counter for everything. In the mercenaries, people take those mercenaries into their other crews in order to often get an ability they don't have access to, like shooting, like condition removal. Outcasts get it all, and they get it a stone cheaper than anybody else.
And no tax.
So yeah, if you want to have all the answers in your hand, Outcast might be the faction for you.
Why would you hate going against the Outcast faction? I mean, you probably already mentioned this, but
right, it's that specialty.
Your first sentence is already like right there.
Yeah. They can take you apart. They have the answer. They have solid damage tracks. Some of them are just downright scary. They can push you down a rabbit hole you didn't know existed. You're like, wait, why am I suddenly on? Wait, if I don't discard 2 cards, I die? Oh, well, okay. There are lots of different hammers, and they can bring them for cheaper because, as Joel mentioned, no merc tax, and so yeah, they're almost as unpredictable as Arcanists. But I think there's some, you know, if you know who your opponent is, you can kind of feel like what they're going to bring. But yeah, otherwise you're just kind of back-footed, and that's an annoying place to be in Malifaux.
Yeah, I'd pretty much agree with Alex on that. They can set you onto the back foot very quickly. If you've guessed the wrong master that your opponent will bring out of the box, then you have an uphill struggle.
Yes.
If you chose the wrong crew. On the plus side of that, it's often difficult for an Outcast player to learn all 7 masters really, really well, because they've got an awful lot of tricks to learn themselves. So you often find that many Outcast players stick to 2 or 3. So if you get to know your opponents, it might help a little bit. But the first time they bring out that new master on you, yeah, it's not going to go well.
And I believe that a lot of their mechanics is probably a little bit more advanced than, you know, for new player to learn. Like Leviticus is probably super hard to start with, because you don't get, it's like, wait, what? I can die many, many times and come back, and my opponent doesn't get assassinate? What?
Amazing! And you know, that kind of ties directly into what they lack, and what I think they lack is simplicity. Like you said, Jill, like you might only learn 2 or 3 because they're just so complex. and their crews are so highly synergistic that you really kind of have to have a feel for their strengths and weaknesses. Like a new Victoria player, I have a guy or two in my local meta that's who they decided to start with because they were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Let's put them on the table. They're like, oh my god, they fall apart like a wet paper bag. And then like when they started to get it where they got the first attack, they're like, whoa, did you see what just happened? Like 4 models just fell off the board. It was incredible. And I was like, yeah, welcome to the game. I'm going to pack my models up over here. So, yeah, they're just highly synergistic, and that's hard to cope with sometimes.
Joe?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's the lack of simplicity. It's the fact that they have the specializations like that just makes it so tough to get your head around them in yourself. So be prepared for a long learning curve, and if you're going into Outcast, be prepared to maybe take one master on for quite a long time to start learning the tricks with them. And it might be a little bit longer before you start winning than it would be for some of the other factions.
Yeah.
Cool. And let's get on to our 6th one. This is the faction that got me into Malifaux. I collected all their models because, I was just trying to stick with my roots, the Asian roots. And I've never painted any of it, and then I started painting it slowly, and I met Alex. So it's a snowball effect. I'm going to go with Alex first this time. So why would I pick the 10 Thunders to begin with?
So much variety. If you want to scare your opponent and have them completely in the dark of what you're going to do to them, I love 10 Thunders. I love it to death. You can sample from every faction. Most of the times with they're an amazing second faction choice because that normally means you have your foot somewhere else already. And so whenever you get a chance to infiltrate those models into your crew with 10 Thunders, you can expand on your knowledge there because of new upgrades, new models that are available, and stuff like that you normally wouldn't have access to. So it's kind of a great second level of Malifaux once you get there, in my opinion. Let's see. Those model pools, your strategies can shift wildly. From left to right, from schemes to killing to just denial. They have a great sampling of support masters, and depending on which master you take, like I'm thinking Jacob, Brewmaster, Yanlo, they can either be support or they can be killy in their own right. So even if you feel like, oh, I know he's taking one of these 3 masters, you don't know how they're going to do it on a master-by-master basis. So I think they're wonderfully diverse, and the few things they have that are, or it's not really a few, but the things they have that are 10 Thunders specific are very powerful. Katanaka snipers, resilient 10 Thunder brothers, a lot of them are cheap and capable and surprising.
Okay, Joel?
I would add to that to start with them being a great second faction. Because they touch in all the other factions, they are a wonderful one to start mixing your collection up with. I would say if you'd like to play models who are not your weak run-of-the-model sort of peasant-type people, then maybe 10 Thunders is for you. There's an awful lot of very good stat lines in the 10 Thunders. Very much, they feel like they'll be that hero level, where they're just that little bit better than some of the other models out there at the same cost in terms of how their defenses, their attacking power, they're just that little bit better trained maybe. And they just feel like I'm packing a whole crew of elites, even when I've got only minions in the crew. They can come from... I've described the Arcanist as a questions faction. The 10 Thunders is an answers faction. Because you can bring the perfect answer to any situation. And if you want to deny points, nothing I think does that better than 10 Thunders. You can shut down people to the scheme pool. They are very capable of doing that with the tricks they have and the damage output they have. They can do an awful lot.
Yeah, I think I want to add to that, if going back to Arcanist, that you don't know what kind of synergy or the master that your opponent's going to bring, 10 Thunders, I think, you're gonna be even worse because not only that you don't know what masters that the opponent can bring, you don't know what the minions can do as well. It's completely random. You can bring someone from Neverborn and Resur and Guild, you know, and then just put them all on the table. And you're like, wait, that actually works.
How do those go together?
Yes. So why would you hate going? I'm stating the obvious here. Why would you hate going against the Ten Thunders, Alex?
That unpredictable nature. We can just stick a pin in that. We got it. Ten Thunders are also, they're able to break a lot of the other core rules. Where I think Neverborn are good at it, I think Ten Thunders are the best at it. Especially for conditions. Like, I mean, dare I mention Shenlong, who's just like, okay, I'm going to just gain conditions. I don't care about what conditions you give me, and I'm actually going to hurt you with them. And then, you know, peasants handing out conditions left and right, Low River and Chiaki, those guys taking away conditions. Oh, I don't like that one. You know, I mean, just, okay, they just break those rules. You know, it really changes the game and the dynamic of these conditions from having a cost and being like, okay, do I want to focus? A lot of their models will, you know, gain a double focus or maybe gain a double defense whenever they do it the first time, which, oh, by the way, they can do it for free if they're in range of Shenlong or for a 0 action, which they previously don't have. So now, instead of having a cost-benefit, you know, analysis you have to do, now it's just like, oh, it's on tap. Those guys are always focused. Those guys are always defensed. And, you know, when that happens, a lot of people don't know what to do against. Like, okay, that guy has a triple positive flip to attack. Great. What do I do now? So, you know, that's the aggravation going against him.
I'd add to that as well the sheer amount of AP they can bring to the board. In terms of almost everyone seems to have an extra AP for doing something. Maybe that's been because they've been free focused and it's like free AP. But it's also so many nimbles, so many melee experts that everyone seems to have access to. Simply every model does more.
Yeah.
A 6-point model put to a 6-point model in another faction just does more.
Ooh, you're kind of breaking up, Joe. Can you finish your last sentence if you are still available? Technical difficulties.
I hate when it gets
It's coming back. It's coming back. Almost there. Hello? You back?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
All right. Can you repeat your last sentence? You were sounding like a robot and it just stopped.
Yeah, it's construct, Joel.
Yeah.
Wife model decoy. No, it's you get so much bang for your buck out of Ten Thunders. That's why I hate going against them.
Okay. And you know, with all these great stuff happening, what are they lacking, Alex?
I think if you focus on them as kind of your secondary, or your second faction, you miss out on those faction upgrades that you're used to having, and that are nice additions to how you would normally play said master or said minions. And, you know, that, while it seems kind of like a, you know, I could give those up, they can have a tangible effect on your game, being short like Fear's Given Form. But I like Fear's Given Form, you know. But yeah, you know, not having that has a pretty big impact. So as far as lacking, they don't lack a whole lot thanks to the infiltration. They can bring stuff around. I don't use Ten Thunders or don't see them as really missing anything. But yeah, they're just a way to look at all of your masters through a different lens, really. They just you know, change the game so you can breathe some new life into what you've already played.
Joe?
I would say that probably most of the masters in the faction are better in their infiltrated version when they're, say, as opposed to their straight Ten Thunders version. Winch, for example, tends to be able to take more powerful things as Neverborn than he can as Ten Thunders. So often you might feel you're playing a watered down version of the Master a little bit. You're not really once you get knowing them, but it might feel that way initially. The other thing I think the faction lacks as a whole is some really good cheap minions. of its own. They've got a little bit better with Wave 2 and things like the Tengu coming out.
Yeah, because Wave 1 is all expensive stuff, I think.
Yeah, I think it was only the Well River Monk that was there. Who actually never
Construct Joe is back.
Oil can.
But yeah, it's they haven't got many really good cheap things, but they can get them from other factions with the infiltration. But they have to go and get them from the other factions.
Right.
So I think if you just want to play straight 10 Thunder models, maybe you're not looking at so many good cheap things.
One thing that I want to add, coming from a budget standpoint, if you are starting 10 Thunders, this is the gateway drug to Malifaux. You're going to have a taste of everything, and then suddenly, oh, I own all 7 factions. Hello.
Yeah, that might have happened.
Dangerous ground. Dangerous ground. Let's go with our last newest faction. I'm going to have Joel starts with this. Some would argue that they're not even a real faction, but they are strong in their own right, and I've never won against a Gremlin faction yet.
They are extremely good fun. I didn't think going in they'd be as much fun as they were, but if you want to play a faction who can do a little bit of everything, and generally do it in a rather amusing way that'll have you laughing, if not your opponent, then Gremlins might be the faction for you. They tend to have, they tend to be the faction of the underdog, where little models do an awful lot. I describe them now as every Clark Kent Gremlin has its Superman moment somewhere in that game.
For one turn.
For one turn. One brief, shining, glorious moment in the sun. And then it's dead. But it's getting those moments right that actually make Gremlins so much fun. So if you like trying to get your timings right and making sure that things go off in the right place just for you, and you don't mind if things don't go to plan, because things will be hilarious when they don't, then start with Gremlins.
Yeah.
And they have exploding pigs.
That's true. Yeah. They're great. They're fast. They're reckless, which gains them a high AP advantage versus your opponent. And they're expendable. Like, you don't feel bad when one of them dies.
You actually laugh when one of them dies.
You did a good job, buddy. Next time. Really, they're just a lot of fun. They have some abilities that are terrifying from a gaming standpoint, like with the pigs and their abilities to just absolutely ruin your day scheme-wise because they're hungry. I mean, that's hysterical. They're just hungry pigs, and they're going to eat your scheme markers. Or,
the pigapult that can shoot 24 inches anywhere on the board with no cover.
Why wouldn't it? I mean, goodness gracious. Yeah, so if you like out-activating your opponent and like doing a whole lot and just, swarming them without zombies and without resilience and without defense or wounds, if you just like swarming, throw green bodies at them, and the Gremlins are a lot of fun.
And why would you hate going against this faction, Joe?
Because you are going to feel like luck is never with you.
No.
It is always with your opponent. The Gremlins do have those moments where they mess up completely, but you'll never remember those as an opponent. You just remember the time they just used Bio 2 card to top deck out of every single hit you got. And every time they fully flipped a dumb luck and blew your expensive model off the board with a 3-stone minion. And those moments will fix in your memory, and you'll begin to hate them with a fiery passion.
Victim, right here.
Yeah, I mean, they're bottle rockets. They're really good at whatever their one or two things are. They fire in that direction, and then they burn out and die, and they take you screaming with them. Like, they can improve how many AP they have. Oh, they take a wound. Who cares? Oh, they can improve their damage track at their own peril. Who cares? Or, yeah, buy you 2 card. They heal when they cheat with Dirty Cheater. It's like, oh my goodness. Like, yeah, why won't you just die? But then when they do, you really don't care, because you probably have 2 or 3 more things in that general direction that should be doing it.
Most probably turning negatives to pluses. What?
You just can't pin them down. Like, that's the thing. Where other factions, you might be able to lock them down and be like, okay, so that side of the board might be neutralized. Like, they'll just squirm out and, go find something to do in another quarter, and you'll be like, dang it, now I gotta go over there. So, yeah, that's my frustration with them.
Now, Joe, what is this faction lacking?
Not an awful lot, it must be said. They have masters that are particularly good at very many things. They've got one of the best summoners in the game in Summer. They've got one of the best area effect range damage dealers in Wong. They have decent combat support in Martukit. But I suppose if I had to go for something overall, it would be a good solid mid-range models that could actually just get stuck into things. They either have little things that do very well, or big things that do even better, but they lack around the mid-range of things. They have nothing that performs averagely or reliably. they either go big or go home.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. Go big or go home. And, what do they lack? I don't know. But they die, and that's kind of their charm. So,
Their wound count is usually lower.
It's generally a little bit lower, but I mean, they have models with more wounds, but they're injuring themselves. But then again, yeah, it is go big or go home. Like, I've had a Brewmaster game where I think I healed, say, 20-something wounds on the Whiskey Golem. Like, oh, okay, that's just the way that works out. So, yeah, they lack. If the guild is reliable, the Gremlins are not.
I think that hits the nail in the head. Like, the keyword for Gremlin is lack of reliability or consistency. It's 100% or 0%. There's no 50 right down the middle.
But it does seem to work for them.
It works. How close to the quick can you cut? Because if you don't actually kill that model off, it'll probably either make you regret it or it'll just heal back up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we covered all 7 factions in Malifaux, and one thing that if I have to close this with a closing thought, one thing that I noticed is question number 3: what is this faction lacking? All across the board, I noticed that both of you guys said they don't really have something that much, that lacked them that much. So I think that I don't want to say that this proves that Malifaux is totally balanced. No, but I would say that any faction is a good start because all of them has their strength, all of them has their weaknesses. I'm the type of guy that picks faction off of aesthetics. If the model looks cool, I'll do it. That's why I never play Gremlins, actually. Sorry, but the reason why I don't play Gremlins is because I don't like painting green, and they look ugly.
Totally understandable.
I gotta say, I agree there, just because, when I find myself demoing for people and, they want to get into the game, I find that more often than not, their fluff choice and their appeal to whatever aesthetic bubbles up inside them makes more of the decision than the mechanics. I'd say probably 4 out of 5 people that I can remember in short memory here that I have, most of them were like, oh, I like the Asian aesthetic, and but I do like the undead. Oh, cool, we got a guy for you. And it didn't matter when I described them, they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. The mechanic that bubbled up was kind of inconsequential, just because there's no real underdog. There's no, oh yeah, we don't play that faction. We're hoping for a new rules rewrite. Everyone is a legitimate choice.
Yeah, if we'd been having this conversation back in the old edition, it would have been very different.
Yes, it would be like Neverborn, 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 Neverborn.
Yeah, well, back in the last edition, there was one way of winning games, and that was speed was king.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how good you were at anything, if you were faster than the opponent, you'd win the games. Now, with how the good games changed, with the less turns, with the more scheme pools, with the shared strategies all the time, and with a rounded out of balanced masters, you really can start where you want to start in Malifaux, enjoy it, and then find someone else you want to play.
Yeah.
Now, with one final thought from each one of you guys. This question actually comes up in a weird place forum, Facebook group, a lot. If you can recommend me one master to start with, one box to buy to start Malifaux in, I'm gonna go with Joel first. This is gonna be hard, really, really tough. You can only have one choice. Who?
God, only one. If you could only start with one, I'm gonna go with Lilith.
Lilith?
Yeah. Lilith is a good one to get started with because she teaches a lot of the basic mechanics of the game. She's got some good hitty minions, and she starts to bring in some of the tricks. And as a master, she can really grow with you because she's what I refer to as a toolbox master. There's nothing she can't do well when you get used to using her. So if I had to choose one, it would be her.
Okay. And I can see Alex is thinking really, really hard there.
I am. You can see the smoke.
This is what you get for playing 10 Thunders, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. You know, everyone's got to give up something. You know, why don't you just play 10 Thunders? I'm going to choose a 10 Thunders Master, in fact. Okay. I'm going to say my favorite for a single box that you have to start with would be Mei Fang. Kind of the same way as Lilith. She's kind of straightforward. I think for me, I feel like triggers are a massive part of the game. And getting that whole idea of your card management down, when to use what trigger, that's something that I think Mei Fang you can grow through because her guys have abilities in armor. They have like triggers to make them more resilient in their, I forget the name of it, but the damage reduction on a tome.
Armor on armor?
I don't recall the name, sorry.
Grinding Halt or something, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Grinding Halt? Yeah.
No, I don't think that's right. Anyway, yeah, you flip the tome and you get, reduced damage by 2. And then, it has synergy with the Master, too. She can support her crew with Vent Steam. She can jump around the board. And then it has a couple of logical first progressions away from the box in, like, Rail Golem and big scary things. They're like, ooh, I want to buy that, like that kind of thing. So I'd say she's a great starting point because she's also somewhat forgivable forgiving in scheme marker placement. You can get around the board to, I need to do that.
That was an answer that Ben from Malifaux would be proud of, right?
Yeah, he'd love that. I'd agree, though. I mean, the other thing I'd say with Mei Fang, and always too, is when you do move on to other masters, the minions from the box that you started with will continue to be very useful to you.
Yeah.
The rail workers and Cain from Mei Fang are amazing everywhere else, and the Nephilim in the Lewis box set find good homes with just about anybody else too.
Yeah.
Now, if I have to pick one, I would go with the classics. I'm gonna go with Lady J. As straightforward as she is, I'm the type of guy that actually plays something. Oh, there's a model there. Let's kill it. If it doesn't kill, let's hit it again. And her box actually gets her, as both Joel and Alex said, that Guild is good at doing what they need to do. Fulfill whatever schemes that they need to fulfill. Their box set is actually really good with that, and they have pretty good resilience against Resers. Lady J wants to be up close and hit you over and over and over. If you hit her, there's a trigger that hits them back. So killing out of your activation is probably one of my favorite things, especially if you flip the red Joker on that. But yeah, overall, Lady J I think is a good start for me. Probably some stuff that she's lacking is she's too straightforward. So most likely your opponent already know what you're going to do. But, easy to start, hard to master.
Yeah, that's fair.
Agreed.
Well, with that being said, that was our closing statement. We recommended which masters that you should start with, or whichever factions that you want to start with. And I would like to, actually, before we go to that, since Joel is actually part of the Malifools, the link is going to be down below, and then his link also for the AAC.
Yep, that's right.
It's going to be down below. I'm going to need the link from you later, Joel. And Alex is going to be joining me for further episodes, and we're probably going to have more guests because I like the format of 3 people so that I don't just agree with Alex all the time. And hopefully you guys, can start Malifaux or branch off to a different faction. Thank you for my guest, Joel Henry. You're not a guest anymore, Alex. You don't get that.
Thank you.
And see you guys next time. Bye, guys.
Guys, bye.
Bye.